Well, Mr. Calvin, you have had your opportunity, sir. I think we'll come back to you shortly. We need to make sure that we're giving both of you gentlemen an opportunity to respond to all of these things. And so let me just say this. Mr. Darwin, you've spoken quite directly to Mr. Calvin. Mr. Calvin, you've spoken very directly to Mr. Darwin. We're going to continue the debate. And the next question I will address to you, Mr. Calvin. And now we move from the area of express science to the area of faith. Of course, there are scientific implications to our discussion tonight, but we will call this section faith. This will be our discussion. And it has been alleged already within this debate that there are possible contradictions between religious faith and science, or more to the point, that these are separate areas of thought. And I would like to ask the question, what is the proper relationship between faith and science? Or, to put it another way, sirs, by what standard can men have a reliable and ultimately rational faith? Mr. Calvin, would you begin, please, sir?
Certainly, I go back to my foundations of what I have said. Holy Scripture is our source book, and it speaks directly to many subjects, by precepts, by principles, by pattern, by using the term, the analogy of faith. Scripture interpreting Scripture. You have alluded there that Scripture is irrational or contradictory. But if we take the clear text and we interpret the less clear text, then we're following that analogy of faith. That's the science that I have committed myself to historical, grammatical, exegesis. That is my hermeneutical method. And since God created all things, therefore we should strive to seek God's thoughts after Him. Science is the handmaiden of theology. It serves the things of God. Special revelation reigns over whatever general revelation may speak to us. And so in that sense, sir, we see that faith in God guides us in our interpretation of science and the facts that are all around us. In Hebrews it tells us that faith is the ground of things which are hoped for and the evidence of things which are not seen.
Mr. Darwin?
Yes, that's the definition of the apostles and the definition of the biblical text of faith. But faith must be based on facts. Man's mind is the arbiter of truth and fact. Science provides those facts and understands them by man's own reason, as I have said before, understood by his mind, the most highly evolved enabler of understanding science and truth. The Bible presents no provable facts concerning the real origin of species. As a matter of fact, as I said, faith is a matter of seeing something that is provable, that is observable, that is repeatable. And your faith is based on some words in a holy book written by ancient men who believed in myths and cosmology, but continue the same argument. I reject your presupposing the God of the Scriptures. I'm rejecting the fact that you say the Scriptures are our authority in such scientific questions as the origins of species, or the origins of the universe, or the origins or how the geological strata came to be the way they were. I agree, and I think you would agree that the Bible is not a book of science per se, it is a book of religion. And when it comes to faith, faith needs to be placed man's reasonable ability to understand.
Am I understanding you correctly, just for the purpose of our audience here, Mr. Darwin, are you asserting that the definition of faith is something which is established, or faith is something which is knowable only when it is provable? Is that how you're defining faith for the purposes of faith?
Yes, I am.
Right. Mr. Calvin, would you like to cross-examine Mr. Darwin on this topic?
I will examine him in this way, sir. You've stated that faith is dependent upon something provable. But let me ask you, Mr. Darwin, do you know all things?
Of course not.
And so, in admitting that you don't know all things, could we also say that there is perhaps somebody out there who knows more than you do, or knows something different than you do?
There is a slight possibility of that, yes.
And so, you would say, sir, that it is possible for there to be someone who has a greater level of brilliance.
Perhaps so. But where are you leading?
Well, where I'm leading, sir, is that there is someone. There is one individual who has created all things, who knows all things, and sees all things. And He's given us His Word. in his holy scriptures, which tell us the truth. And he gives us the gift of faith when we have no capability of producing it in ourselves. For faith is something that God gives to trust in him and to believe in his ways. And I think, sir, that perhaps you lack it.
Mr. Darwin, you may respond, Mr. Calvin.
Let me begin by observing that Mr. Calvin has built his reputation on a unique brand of intolerance, which includes bullying those who will not subscribe to his peculiar doctrines. I refuse to allow my reason to be placed in bondage to such petty tyranny.
Well, as an attack there will get you nowhere.
Or will I ever subscribe to any religion which teaches the eternal damnation of all those who do not subscribe to its creeds. For if this were so, my most beloved relatives, especially my children who died in infancy, and many of my dearest friends, would be burning in eternity, and this is both unreasonable and this is damnable doctrine. No, sir. Having once forayed in the world of Christianity, my life's journey has brought me to one inexorable conclusion. To believe in something without proof of its existence is irrational. I do set up my mind as the arbiter of truth. It may serve as a comfort to others, or perhaps as one of my contemporaries explained, an opiate to the masses, but it is not the basis for reasoned analysis. It is precisely this type of blind faith which has enslaved nations, stifled scientific inquiry, and thwarted the inevitable and necessary and the necessity of human evolution itself. I dream of a world in which our leaders are governed. Our leaders are governed by men of thoughtful philosophy, not religious dogmatism, as in the dark ages from which you spring. Our future must be informed by the teachings of science, not the scribbling of ancient priests. It is this sure foundation of reason which alone can carry the day.
Well, gentlemen, I think we must press on now to our third question. And our third question, which is our final question, concerns the issue of ethics. This is a very timely question. It was one that was timely in both of your days, gentlemen. And today we ask the question, ever still, what rule binds the moral action of men? Or to put it another way, by what standard ought men to establish the ethical foundations for their society? Now, we've discussed already that you, sir, believe that the standard is divine, and you, sir, believe the standard is in the Holy Scripture. I would appreciate, though, if you could amplify and help us to understand how this actually works out. So again, what standard ought men use to build the ethical foundation for society? Mr. Darwin, would you begin, please?
Mr. Moderator, I am growing tired of the same questions being rephrased in different ways. So I shall state my case plainly and simply. Our morality, our ethics, like our science, must be evaluated in light of the right rule of reason. This reason speaks clearly as to the nature of man and his destiny on this earth. We are engaged in a clear struggle for the survival of the fittest. I will leave it to others to determine how broadly this principle should be applied, whether it be in social theory or in ethics. But it must be taken into consideration that it must be taken into consideration seems unquestionable to me.
So you say, sir, you did leave it to others to make application of this pernicious doctrine. My research informs me that many have taken this